with Dante. Maybe it's not with Dante, it's elsewhere. Where I get these philosophies from. There's some theories that they're just only the now.
Yeah, that's kind of like he kind of sees the past as like merging into the present, and the present in the way that like the present in the way we experience it configures the way that we experience the past, and the way that we think of the past. So like, yeah.
That makes sense because the past is just a thought in present time, a memory. The memories are very clumsy.
Yeah. He also had this interesting theory of consciousness where he thought that the brain has like a limiting effect, like it sort of screens out like what we experience instead of like generates what we like the senses, what we can experience.
That's what a lot of quote unquote psychedelic philosophers believe as well. Because
yeah, all this Huxley like kind of did like
yeah. Because if you take away those gates or filters that your brain puts on, there's so many other things that you can, like so many other stimulations in the world. It's just we normally don't pay attention to the vast majority of them. Otherwise, probably would be function.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Because it begs the question, what's actually more real? Also, obviously in the Vedanta tradition, none of it is anyhow.
Yeah.
Like your mind else.
That's kind of interesting, like, the Vedanta philosophy, like how it sort of views mind and like matter is like interconnected, but like there's also just beyond that, there's like consciousness, which sort of generates it.
So underlying substrate of it.
Yeah.
But I think quantum physics is like that too, no? It's like you have to meet a subject that is an object in order for the object to be a subject.
Yeah.
And by looking at it, you change it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like my dad told me about like this one thing, like he's a scientist, and he like sent me this one paper where like there was this study done at the university at Stanford, I think, where like in an experiment it was kind of proven that like the placement of a molecule changes like based on how you think, where you think it is. It's like
where you think it is?
Yeah, like it's where it changes like its position based on like how you perceive it. Like one person perceives it one way and like.
But it's not like the what is that? The one where like because you have using the microscope, you have to shoot light on something, it automatically moves it.
Yeah.
Heidegger?
Yeah, Heisenberg.
Heisenberg principle.
Yeah.
Like that, I guess.
I don't like that, yeah.
Didn't he have a cat?
That was Schrodinger.
Oh.
Schrodinger's cat.
What do you do with the cat?
It's an imaginary cat.
You don't know. You don't know what he did with it or what he didn't do with it. It's just.
How do you own who that? You said you were going to be late. You're not late.
Oh, I'm late. A little bit.
Well, I'm alive. They're talking about Heisenberg's cat.
Schrodinger's cat. Does
No,
it exist
they
or
were
does it
talking
not
about
exist?
Heisenberg's and also things that I absolutely could not understand. They were using very big words.
But does the cat exist or not exist?
I have no
That
idea.
is the question.
The question is, did it scratch the couch?
Oh, scratched mine.
How are you?
I'm good. I was just visiting with a friend who lost her mom. So I thought,
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
yeah, but Grace shows up unexpectedly in many ways to help, even in such times.
Guess I showed up as you today, so.
Okay. Now, can you make your do I? Very well. Ooh, 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 there's a way. And now it's the host. And Mark is online too now. Oh dear, I just logged on. Can I ask you to poke the box real quick? So he says that the antithesis to this is ignorance. Now, why is this important? Because it's pretty easy to know the world, even though we have a very gross mind. I don't care how upset you are. Do you know that that's a cup? Do you know that you're not a cup? That's pretty obvious. But when it comes to being able to have the direct experience of my own self-nature, we need what we call a sattvic mind, a mind that's clear, a mind that's pure. We get this paroksha jnana, this indirect knowledge through the scripture. The aparoksha jnana, the direct knowledge. It's not accessible to a gross mind. Now, Yoga Vasishtha thunders both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is ever free. So we do not have an ontological problem. It's not that I am a suffering jiva and I'm going to become something super duper. What I'm going to do is realize what I've always been. Let me give you an example. True example today. I have an iPhone. And when I go to the symphony next week, they want not only to have proof of my vaccination card, but they want to have proof that I'm boosted. So as the vaccination artist, I got out my phone and I took a photo of the backside. And I'm wondering, is there some way to get front side, backside, driver's license photos all in one place? So I can just go like that and show it to the people at the door of the symphony hall. Guess what? I don't know how to do that.
Jim, I can do that for you.
You're missing the point.
But I did want to help you.
I'm talking with my friend Jim Warhol,
Okay.
former computer engineer, actually release engineer and stuff. So he says, well, it's real simple to do. You know, he showed me where the album thing was. So you poke that, and then you poke the pictures that you want to put in the album. I hadn't named the album. I named it Vaccine. And that, you know, little blue check marks on it. It was very cool. All of a sudden, there they are. So I closed the photo thing and I opened back up and I poked album and then looked for vaccine, poked that one, and there they were, the 3 photos. Cool. Now I've had this phone. It's a 10. When did the 10 come out? How long ago?
Maybe 3 years ago.
3 years ago. I've had this phone 3 years. It's been able to do that for 3 years. I just did not know it. Do you see what I mean? The problem was not that I needed a different phone. Getting an iPhone 13 was not the issue. The issue was I did not know how to do this. Making sense? So also, Myself is existence that is birthless, changeless, and deathless. Consciousness, which is absolute pure awareness, never touched by the 6 waves of sorrow. And Ananda, the source of all happiness. But because of our ignorance, we do not know it. You don't need a new self. You need knowledge. Does that make sense? Now, all of the iPhones have a very fancy function called voiceover. Anybody know about voiceover? No, I know some do. Voiceover is what blind people use. So you can actually darken the screen completely and totally navigate the phone by doing switchy, flippy things, and it will read the text. The whole screen's everything. You do not need to see the screen to completely navigate an iPhone. I was trained on it once, and now I've totally forgotten. But that's what happens to you and me. We'll come to satsang, hear the scripture, we get our minds tuned up. Oh yeah, I get it. And then you leave the Vedanta on your chair, just like I left, or the instructions on how to voice over left with the trainer when she walked out the door. Asked me today if I can do it. Such is the power of ignorance. Now, we call this ignorance avidya, lack of knowledge. Universal ignorance we call maya. And its first power is avritti, or avarana shakti, which means veiling power. So in my mind, I have the non-apprehension of my essential nature. I may theoretically know I am Brahman. It's not my direct experience. Then the second power of ignorance is what we call vikshepa shakti, which means projecting power or agitating power. What it does, it makes me feel like I'm a person. So when I talked about both bondage and liberation occur to the mind, the self is ever free. What is my bondage? My bondage is nothing more than the deeply rooted conviction. It's almost like hypnotism. But I'm the body. And along with that is I'm not okay. I am sad. I am happy. I'm a success. I am a failure. I am smart. I'm stupid. I have issues. I don't have issues. I have low self-esteem. I have good self-esteem. All this is all stuff around the body and the personality. That's my bondage. Because of this non-apprehension and subsequent misapprehension, my only bondage is an epistemological one. I think I'm the body. So I'm in India in the south, and I see this person walking around with a large clay pot. So why are you carrying the pot around? Doesn't everybody do that? I'm a pot. Seems silly. That's what we're doing. is the body. What is liberation? There is no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction in the mind, based on direct experience. Not that I'm an enlightened person. No, but I am Brahman. I am that witnessing consciousness. I am that ground of being. Neither state touches the self. Self doesn't have any problems. All the problems are in the human mind. So, in order to realize, not become, not attain, not merge into the infinite self, in order to realize who I am, I need a mind that is very pure and clear, that has been freed from what we call klesha, affliction. When I get upset and agitated, then this feeling that I am a person gets very dense and gross. Dosha, defect. Defects of character, personality. So this list in the 4 verses, 8 through 12, have as their purpose attaining a sattvic mind. Things that are contrary to that he calls ignorance. Why? Because if we practice the opposite of that list of qualities, the mind gets thicker and thicker and duller and duller and grosser and grosser. And my suffering gets greater and greater. My bondage gets greater and greater. It's a very important point. Any thoughts on this? Any questions about it?
Jim, I have
So
one
in the
question.
process of spiritual work, you do a lot of self-power kind of exercises, but the goal is to let go of those in the end. Just,
I'm not sure I'd call it self-power. I think I would call it small self-purification. It's just a little bit different in kind of how you want to see it.
yeah, I see the difference.
Think of it this way: if you want to look through a microscope and the lenses are dirty, you can't tell the difference between the microbe and schmutz on the lenses, the eyepiece of the microscope. What do you need to do?
Strip off the stuff.
You clean the microscope. You get out your polishing cloth, make sure it's clean. Then you see, aha, that wasn't something in my slide example. It's something that was in the microscope. Or if you're looking through a telescope, is that an asteroid? Or is it dust on the telescope lens? Yeah. Gotta clean it. Don't get confused. So this is why we need a purified mind. And the way we do that is to cultivate these qualities. And they occur in different language in many, many different scriptures. In Viveka Chudamani, those of us who studied that, you get the qualifications of a fit student that Shankara talks about. If you're studying Raja Yoga, we call them the yamas and niyamas. But they're all of them, their goal is to purify the mind. And then when the mind is purified, we're able to understand the scriptures. Now, as we move into the next verse, I want to talk about how to use them. So first of all, I will tell you how not to use them. When we talk about Krishna, or we talk about the self, or we talk about the knower of the field, if we objectify it out there, it will do no good, has no power to free us. Because the scripture itself is what we call a pramana. It is a means of knowledge for direct experience, if you use it correctly. So, place we start. When the scriptures talk about the self, always understand they're talking about you. Who sees the phone? That's yourself. You're not going to get another self. Again, my problem is not ontological. Nothing wrong with myself. The problem is through ignorance, through lack of direct investigation, I do not know who I am. So, any questions about this short little journey we've taken in 8 through 12? Didn't we end with 12 last time?
Yeah.
Okay. So we start tonight with number 13. Can you help us out, please?
Sure. Yeyam yattat pravakshami yajñātvāmritamashnuते anādimat param brahma na sattanna duchyate. I will declare that which has to be known, knowing which one attains to immortality, the beginningless supreme Brahman, called neither being nor non-being.
Okay, so now he says, what is it that we need to know? We talked about it. The problem is not becoming. The issue is knowing. Here Krishna says, oh, you need to know the Supreme Brahman. Okay. Oh, out there, where is Brahman? No. All of Vedanta is thundered in the 4 Mahavakyas, one from each one of the Vedas. The first one, Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness, awareness, knowing. Is it out there? No. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Oh, okay, Guruji. I'm going to go in meditation. I'm going to have an experience of the self. I'm waiting for it to go by. No. When the scriptures say self, Atma, it means Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. I have a hard enough time paying my bills on time. How can I be God? That doesn't make sense. That's because we're confusing the self with the not self, the knower of the field with the field. So when we're going to know Brahman, it means I'm going to investigate with this purified mind. It's very quiet. It's tuned up mind. Who am I? Last Mahavakya. Not Aham Mahatma. Not that I'm a great saint. I am Brahman. So here when Krishna says, what is it that we need to know? The Supreme Brahman. Beautiful, more wonderful, awesome. But it is you. How do I find God? You find out who you are, and you will find out who He is. Now, how is this investigation done? Again, the problem is, let me put it in the negative. The problem is not that I haven't had an experience of the self. The problem is it's so subtle that I miss it. Example I like to give. Do you see the photograph of Swamiji behind me? See it? See, first of all, it's got a wooden frame. And the matting is white. All these years, I keep thinking I should have done a peach colored matting that matched his robe. Then you see the photo of Swamiji with his 1970s glasses. Now, if you look towards the bottom of the photo, after all these years, it's almost 30 years old. Well, no, actually more than that, it's about 40 years old. Got it in 88. You'll see he signed it for me. Can you see his signature? Very faint now. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, many of you may have been here in this room for weeks, months, years, seen the picture of Swamiji, and never noticed his signature. It's been there all along. It's nothing new. But because it's faded, because it's subtle, I didn't notice it. So this is why we need this quiet mind. So the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman means in the subtle intellect. I'm going to get this aha. I see. That's me. Man. Next verse.
Sorry, I hadn't prepared for 14. Sarvatah Panipadam Tat Sarvato Shishirashromukham Sarvata Shrutimaloke Sarvamavritya Tishtati. With hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, he exists in the world, enveloping all.
So this is not some notion that the Brahman is some fantastic creature with millions of mouths and hands and feet and stuff like that. No, this is mystic symbolism. The way we get at it is this way. So I, Jim, am sitting here, and you are sitting wherever you're sitting. All of you in Zoom land, we do the same thing. I see the room from my viewpoint. You see the room from your viewpoint. I am aware of my hands and feet and mouth, my body. You are aware of your body. I am aware of my thoughts and feelings. You are aware of your thoughts and feelings. But when I introvert the attentive faculty, the mind may very quiet. For example, just listen to the traffic flow. See if you can notice who hears it, what hears it. If you thin the mind, stop the mind. So you can't find a person in there. It's empty. Yet it shines as pure awareness. And each one of us has the identical experience. So the self in me is not like the self in you. The self in me is the self. So you have hands and 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 feet and feet and feet and feet and thousands and thousands and thousands of feet everywhere. Meaning it is the self that is the conscious being, enlivening and shining through everyone, every living being. With this in mind, read it again, the English one more time.
With hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, he exists in the world and enveloping all.
Enveloping all. Okay. So, one of my favorite words for the self, we get this in Yoga Vasishta again, is Chid Akash. Chid means chid. Akasha means space, the space of consciousness. So when I look behind my eyes and notice the noticer, it is like space. So Deepa, there you are. When you introvert your attention, can you get the sense of that vast empty space? Yeah? Yes?
Sometimes, occasionally,
Tonight?
not right now.
Okay, well, let's, for the sake of argument, let's say you do. Now, look at Fang. Careful, I don't want you to hit Trevor with the self. Is it really behind? No. actually, the body, mind, intellect is in the self. The self is not in the body. The classic example they use is the pot. We'll use the mug. So the self is like space, cup space, room space. If we have space in the cup and I move the cup, have I moved space? No. Space is one homogeneous mass of nothing. So the cup is in space, not really space in the cup. You just define it that way. That's a word. So I always think of myself. But actually, this robot, this body, mind, intellect, is in the universal medium of consciousness. It's in front, it's behind, it's above, it's below, it's inside, it's outside. Vijnanam, scripture says. A homogeneous mass of consciousness. Next verse.
Jim, I have a question.
Certainly.
So, I mean, if we say that the feeling of I, the I-ness, actually belongs to the space, is that a fair way to understand it?
The feeling of I belongs to the space of consciousness.
Yes, yes.
Not physical space. Physical
Yes,
space
sure.
is also in the self.
Okay.
But what I want you to do, rather than getting hung up on the words, with your mind made very still, see if you can inquire into your own sense of I. And see it, maybe yours is pink or blue or a cow. But what you'll find is when you examine that pure sense of I, there's nothing there. But it's not void. There's no thing there. But it shines as awareness. And Baba, being. Look. Does that make it a little clearer?
Yes, thank you.
Good question. Next verse.
Sarvendriya gunabhasam, sarvendriya vivarjitam, asaktam sarva bhutchaiva, nirgunam gunabhoktruja. Shining by the functions of all the senses, yet without the senses, unattached, yet supporting all, devoid of qualities, yet their experiencer.
So here we have the language of paradox. Let's take each one of these ideas now. First one.
Shining by the functions of all senses, yet without the senses.
So what is the eye behind the eye? The ear behind the ear, etc. What is it that shines through the holes in the body and illuminating all the functions of the mind and all the thoughts? The scriptures use another wonderful metaphor. You have to imagine one of these large clay pots with a lid. And somebody has taken a chisel and a hammer and poked 5 holes in this clay pot. And they take one lantern and if it's evening and you look at the pot with the 5 holes, you will see 5 lights. Now, get some colored cellophane. One hole, you put blue cellophane over it, seeing. Another hole, you put red cellophane over it, hearing. Another hole, you put yellow cellophane over it, smelling, etc. It's that one light shining through the 5 senses. And what it illumines is colored by the sense organ. Consciousness functioning through the mind, through the eyes, is seeing. Consciousness functioning through the mind, through the ears, is hearing. But without the life principle, senses see nothing. Aunt Mary has died and she's having an open casket. And I want you to wear a suit to the funeral. Why do I have to wear a suit to the funeral? Because I don't want her to see you in a t-shirt. That makes no sense. Aunt Mary's dead. She can't see you, even if her eyes are open in the casket. They cannot see. Eyes don't see. Awareness functioning through the mind livens the sense organs. So I know what I. Next idea.
Unattached yet supporting knowledge.
So whatever I see, hear, taste, touch, or smell, and however I react to those perceptions, whatever ideas I may have, awareness is a sangha, unattached. Now, what you and I need to do is prove this for ourselves. So the practice that's implied here is called Sakshi Bhava, the attitude or the feeling of being a witness. So when you're out there in the world, just keep reminding, I am not the sense objects. I'm the knower of it. I'm not the feeling. I'm the knower of it. I'm not the thought. I'm the knower of it. Feeling arises, you get triggered or agitated. Wait a minute, to whom did this occur? It occurred to me. Oh, I'm the witness of it. See if you are the feeling or the thought. Someone may say, well, does the self have will, Jim? You figure that out yourself. Do you see will as a function of the self or of your mind? Do you see desire and choice take place? Knower, known. This Brahman this self is always the unattached subject of the body, of the energy, of the feelings, of the thoughts, and not even the sense of ego, and not even the darkness of ignorance. Ever the knower. Physical pain, pleasure gets to my body. Emotional upset and happiness gets to my mind. Certainty and doubt get to my intellect. But none of it touches me. Don't believe me. Prove it in the laboratory of your own experience. Watch. Next idea.
Devoid of qualities, yet they're experiencing.
So I has no qualities. Yet I illumine all the qualities. I am not happy, I am not sad, I am not angry, I am not peaceful, I am not lustful, I am not bored. All of those are just qualities of the mind and intellect. None of them touch me. I'm the knower of them. Yet, I am. What are you feeling right now? Whatever it is, who knows it? I do. Not the experiences, not the feelings, not the sensations, not the thoughts. Yet you are the knower of them all. Next idea.
That's the end of the verse.
All right. Next one.
Hirantascha bhutana acharam charameva cha sukshmatvat tadavigyeyam durastham chantike cha tat. Without and within all beings, the unmoving and also the moving, because of its subtlety unknowable and near and far away, is that.
All right. So again, ideas for us to see if they're true about me, my own self. First one again in this verse.
Without and within all beings, the
Without and within. So we talked about, is space inside the cup? Yeah. So it feels like I am inside my body peeping out. But is space outside the cup? Yep. If I break the cup, what happens to the space? Nothing. It's an optical illusion, a spiritual optical illusion. Best way to understand this is to go to the dream state. So in the dream state at night, you create a dream body and you perceive a dream world, which appears to be outside of your dream body. You have dream reactions, feelings and thoughts inside. Inside, outside. But when you wake up, you see the dream body, the dream ego, the dream outside, and the dream inside are all in your mind. This is no different. It just seems like the self is inside me. So here's a very good meditation. Where are you? Actually, yourself is outside of time and space, but it pervades time and space. Next idea.
The unmoving and also the moving.
Yes. So now we're looking at this distinction between Nirguna Brahman. Nirnis means without. Guna means qualities. Brahman, the ultimate. And Sa Guna Brahman. Sa means with. Guna qualities. Brahman, the ultimate. So when we've been talking about the field and the knower of the field, the self and the not self, the subject and all the objects, oops, we lied. What we've been calling the not self is Sa. The eternal subject is Nirguna Brahman, without qualities. Always the knower. But what is the known? The moving, as opposed to the unmoving. Again, this becomes easy to understand when you go to the dream state. All the people, places, things, and conditions in your dream, which are perceived as objects, are nothing but your mind. So you are both the knower and the known in the dream state. All this is like a dream. It is consciousness appearing as the world of name and form. Lots and lots of images to try to explain this. The waves in the ocean are nothing but the ocean appearing as the waves. I used to go sailing in LA with my dad and my brother when I was a teenager. We would leave San Pedro, LA Harbor, and sail to Catalina. So there would be 4 6-foot swells in the ocean going over there. So if you're lying on the deck, that's a lovely reach. The wind is from behind you and the sails are all spread out. You lie on the deck. You can see the wave come up above what they call the gunnel, the edge of the boat. Let's see. That's how it looks like. Oh, there's a wave. It just appears. There's another swell. It just appears. Is this swell different from that swell? What I don't see lying on the deck is the ocean. It's just the ocean appearing as the swells. Metaphor falls apart because consciousness really never moves. The other metaphor the scriptures like to use is like the city in the mirror. So you head over to San Francisco and you drive up to the top of Twin Peaks. And then you face west, hold up a mirror and tip it, and see all of downtown in your mirror. Look, I can see the trolleys going up and down Market Street. Oh, look, there's an accident right there at Mission and Fifth. You can see it. Now, is the city in the mirror? Does the mirror undergo any change? In fact, it's the nature of the mirror to be able to have reflections appear in it. This metaphor falls apart because you need an external object to make the reflection in the mirror. So you got to mush the two together. Let's use a much more immediate example. Close your eyes and visualize a strawberry. See how vivid you can make it. Mine's nice and ripe and red. And I can even smell that very pungent strawberry fragrance. Open your eyes. What'd you make your strawberry out of?
Imagination.
What's imagination made out of?
Thoughts.
Talks?
Thoughts.
Thoughts. What are thoughts made out of?
Nothing.
Well, can you find any substance other than your own mind? You are the knower, and it is consciousness itself that appears as the strawberry. Nirguna, without qualities, knower. Saguna, strawberry. No different. Microcosm, macrocosm. All this, which appears to move, is made up of nothing but the immovable ground of being. Next idea.
Because of its subtlety, unknowable.
Unknowable. Oh, this is a good one. Because of it's so subtle. What do we mean by that? Our issue here is to discriminate. So if you have a bowl of rice, uncooked, with, say, raisins in it, and I say discriminate between the raisins and the rice, pull it out. That's a comparatively easy thing to do, maybe time consuming. If it's a long grain and wild rice mixture, you can still discriminate. If it's long grain rice and short grain rice, you got each little tiny grain. It's harder to discriminate. But if I say long grain Minnesota rice and Indian basmati rice, could you tell the difference? It's really hard. They're different. They taste different. But the difference is subtle. So to know that I am not a cup is pretty easy to do. To know that I'm not a lamp is pretty easy. To know that I'm not the body is a little more difficult. To know that I'm not energy is even more difficult, more subtle. To know that I'm not feelings, really hard for some people. I am so triggered. I think I'm my feelings. And of course, to know I'm not a thought is even hard. How could you have been so stupid on that account? You're off by $50,000. You are so stupid and careless because you don't check your work. This is the distinction between the self and the idea of self. Okay. That's the subtlest and the most challenging of all discrimination. And the mind needs to be very pure to see that. To be able to distinguish between the self and the thought of self, between aham and ahankara. Because the self is so subtle. Now, Swami Tejo Mayananda used to love books with optical illusion puzzles. You know, you look for, there are 23 bunnies in the picture. Can you find all the bunnies? You ever seen those like in the funny papers on Sunday? Or there are numbers. Can you find all the different numbers in the cartoon? Or you've seen the classic one, it's, are they vases or are they two faces? So you just, depends on the way you look at it. Oh, I see it. That's what it's like. You either see it or you don't. Now, once you've found all the bunnies in the picture, they, of course they're there. It's so clear, it's so obvious. Once you see who you are, it's permanent because you are always there. You can't lose yourself. Now, if our mind gets grossified again, then you're like Jim who forgets how to use the voiceover on the phone. Who's gonna have to show me again? That's the Guru's job. Keep showing us over and over. Next idea.
And near and far away is that.
So it is both near, it's closer than the closest, closer than hand or foot, closer than your breath, closer than your innermost thought. It's your very self. It's your very direct, constant experience of and it is the substratum of the entire universe. So if the Voyager spacecraft keeps going and going and going and going and going and going and going for 1 billion years, it will never get to the edge of space. It will never reach the farthest extent of God. Is that all the ideas in this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next one.
17. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktamiva cha sthitam bhutabhartri cha te tajgyeyam grasishnu prabhavishnu cha. And undivided, yet he exists as if divided in beings. That is to be known as the supporter of beings, He devours and he generates.
So how can it be undivided and as it were is divided? So if two people stand in front of a mirror and we see reflections, pratibimba, in the mirror. If Fang and I go into the bathroom and look in the same mirror, it is the one undivided mirror, even though there are two images in it. So the mirror appears to have multiplicity, but in fact it's just one mirror. So also, consciousness is one without a second. Solid, dense, homogeneous. And in it, all the names and forms appear. Consciousness never is moved or touched or altered by any of it. Next idea.
And undivided, yet he exists as if divided in beings.
Okay, we did that one.
That is to be known as the supporter of beings.
Yes. So that consciousness is the life principle. So the image I like to use is the light bulb, the fan, and the stereo. The light bulb without electricity cannot shine. The fan without electricity cannot turn. The stereo without electricity cannot sing. But electricity is not light, motion, or sound. But because of electricity contact, the bulb shines, the fan moves, the stereo sings. Likewise, all the beings in the world need Brahman contact in order to do our thing. Without it, nothing could move or even be. Yet, consciousness is not noses and toeses and arms and fingers and stuff. It is and it isn't. But it is the life principle in everything. So here's a good meditation for us to end on. Yourself is not an it. Yourself is Baba. Baba means being. The self is the one conscious, sentient being. Not inert.
How does that sentient being then interact with the inert objects as well?
It does and it doesn't. That conscious being doesn't really interact. All the inert things appear in it. Gita will use the term later, asparsha yoga. Prichati means to touch. Asparsha means untouched. Yoga means joy. Without you, your body couldn't do a thing. None of the bodies can. yet nothing in the world of form ever really touches it. The touch of the untouched, Swamiji used to call.
What about, so like inert things are in it, but what about like beings out, like humans or dogs? Are they also in it, or is it different?
If you dream about a dog or a person, are they in your mind or not?
Yeah, in my mind. So it's so you're saying inert or not inert, it's got a
Makes no difference.
It's the same.
What's different is the equipment. You dream about a table, that is a tamasic, dull object. If you dream about Deepa, that is a more sattvic object that you're dreaming. But the being looking out of Deepa's eyes and the being looking out of your eyes, the same being. It's the same also with a cat or a dog. One being. All right, we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.